Welcome to the Jerry Graves channel. This is a channel that talks about justice. I wanted to go ahead and jump straight into the channel, and without further ado, let's jump into it. Now, I wanted to talk about how white supremacists are basically able to get and rally other white supremacists to fight against a non-white person without much proof of anything. One of the techniques they use is called the I don't know technique, and it's basically trying to make the black person seem crazy. You know, even if the black person is not really doing anything wrong or anything that's crazy, they'll explain it to the other white supremacists, like a cop over the phone, a 911 operator over the phone, as if this black person has gone crazy, like this black person's on drugs. They might not literally say it, but they kind of say it by just being like, he just kind of, I don't know, like he's just kind of, walking around, and I don't know, I just don't know. They keep saying they don't know, even though they do know, but they keep saying it as if that somebody needs to come and investigate, at least to just know what you're doing. So they don't really have anything that you're doing wrong, but at least send a cop here to ask some questions to find out what you're doing, and that's how they do it. That's how they get people there. It's always this, I'm playing dumb, I just don't know. I don't get it. And the white supremacists will do this while you're telling on them. If they're caught red-handed, they'll sit there and play dumb and be like, I don't know where the disconnect is. Like, what's the problem? I don't get it. Like, we're getting along so much. I don't know. And then people start feeling sorry for them, even though they were caught red-handed. And on a more serious tip, a lot of black people end up dying because of this phenomenon. They're able to just act like the black person's being erratic, and that black person ends up missing, and that's what they'll say. Like, I don't know. They were just, she was just over there talking nonsense, and she's just looking at the wall, and I don't know what's wrong with her. I didn't know, and next you know, she was floating in the pool dead. This fake erratic bullshit that they try to put on black people. It's always like, well, that black person must be on drugs. Like they're implying that you're on drugs. Like there's just something wrong with you. And anytime there's a bunch of white witnesses, they go into this default thing. Especially if there's a white suspect, it's the default of that black person's erratic. Yeah, they ended up dead, and somehow it's their fault because they were acting erratic before they died. They did something to lead up to their own death. They were out of their mind, and somehow they ended up killing themselves, and we're just around, and we did nothing. We were innocent. They were acting crazy. They must have been on drugs. I don't know. Such as with the case of Sws Richardson, and I believe this case is still unsolved, where a black woman who was like the picture of white supremacy, the abuse that it has on her. Like, she's gay, she didn't really have her life together. She still lived with her grandmother, and just stuff like that. Like, she was the picture of a victim of white supremacy, right? So Sws Richardson, and I'm going to link the video that I was watching down in the description so you can watch it for yourself. So I'm watching this video, and first of all, it was a suspected white supremacist just based off of the fact that she was commentating and explaining the story of what's going on, and she was doing a good job of that, but just some of the stuff that she was alluding to, which goes into this video of this the crazy black person who's just out off they're just out of their mind before they get murdered. She was believing everything that the police are saying, basically, kind of, giving them too much credit to the point where I'm like, okay, she's a suspected white supremacist. But anyway, so Sws Richardson, she goes to some bar out in California, and she was in Malibu. And mind you, of course, Malibu's like the white, like it's supposed to be a really white area. I've never been there, but it's supposed to be rich and things like that. So you can just expect that it's going to be mostly white people, and any population that's full of white people is going to have a large population of white supremacists. And so she's a black person. She starts partying at this place, and she basically gets ditched with the bill. You know, she ran up a bill of about $89, and somebody had offered her to basically eat with them or something like that. And so it was a misunderstanding about who's supposed to pay. Basically, probably another white supremacist, ditching her with the bill, probably ate off of her money, and then so the restaurant basically wants her to pay, and she didn't want to pay because it's like I didn't, that whole thing of probably because she didn't all the stuff on the that she was they're asking her to pay for wasn't her stuff, and somebody basically dished her with the bill. She's telling them, and they're not letting her go, and so she calls her grandmother. And here's another key point in the story: she calls her grandmother, right, and her grandmother offers to pay for it. Now, Matrice could have had money in her bank account to pay, but she was arguing because she's like, why would I? You know what I mean? So she was arguing with them. So her grandmother offers to pay just to end the whole dispute. And then they wouldn't accept the payment from her. They wouldn't accept the payment because they're like, well, you're not here. And it's just like, that's just, you know what I mean? That's another thing that's what white supremacy. I want to go ahead and stop it right here in the story. This whole idea that every time there's something that has to do with a black person, right? Everything needs to go by the rules. We got to go by policy. That card could be stolen. Why am I going to? It's like, dude, just take the dang credit card and let it be finished. You know what I'm saying? Just stuff like that. That's white supremacy, because the white supremacists and just white people in general, they break rules all the time. And even if they get caught breaking a rule, right? Even if that card is stolen, and what's the worst that could happen to them? They're not going to get fired. White supremacists hardly ever get in trouble for anything. They kill people and get away with it. You know what I'm saying? And now, you know what I'm saying? So just that right there, white supremacists always overcomplicate things and make everything spiral out of control. So that's something I wanted to say. It's the restaurant's fault just right there. But all right, so they won't take the payment, and then they're like, oh well, we're gonna call the cops on you. So the cops get there, and they give her a sobriety test, right, to see if she's drunk, and they end up taking her to jail. They're like, the person who was explaining the story said that the people at the restaurant didn't think that she should be driving because she was acting so erratic, right? And so they were thinking that she was drunk, but then when she blew for the sobriety test, she passed. So they're like, oh no, we're gonna take you in for not paying, even though she probably would have paid over because she had the money. You know what I'm saying? She probably would have just paid if she knew she was going to jail. But they made a big made it confusing for because they told her grandmother that they took her because she was too drunk, even though she passed the test. So Matrice probably didn't know what she was going to jail for, but they take her to jail, and this is some place that she's not from. She's not from Malibu, and so they take her to jail, and her mom, her grandmother calls, and she's like, don't release her. She doesn't know where she's at. And they impounded her car as well, and they put her purse and her cell phone in the trunk, and they impounded her car. They didn't even take her stuff with her so that she could pay to get her car released. They impounded her car, put her purse in the trunk, and then released her at 12 o'clock in the morning. Even after her mom, they told her mom, her grandmother, that they aren't going to release her, because her grandmother was like an hour or two away. They were like, it's really late. If you're going to release her, I'm gonna go and pick her up. But if you're not, then I'm gonna let her stay, and then I'll get her in the morning. But they said they weren't going to release her, and then they end up releasing her at 12 o'clock. So now she's out there in the middle of nowhere, and she ends up getting murdered. And then they go and they start talking to the police, and all of them are on code, basically talking about how erratic she was. And the police are going around getting stories from people, everybody that she talked to, and all these people are white. You know what I'm saying? And they're all talking about how erratic this person was, even though she wasn't. And so the moral of this story, the reason why I'm telling you this story, is that you can understand what's going on anytime you hear a black person being described as irate. If you hear a white person say, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what they were doing. I don't understand what she was doing." Or using the word disturbed. "I was disturbed. It was disturbing." Anything like that, your antenna should go up. You know, and this type of stuff is what needs to be imparted to black people so that you can understand that. And so that if you're in that grandmother's position, you hear somebody talking about somebody being drunk or they're out of it, and you know that you need to go pick them up. You know that you need to go stop everything you're doing and pick them up that night. You know, that's the type of stuff that we need to understand. We need to look out for words like that. Those are code words. Go get your, if you hear somebody getting talked about like they're drunk or erratic in any kind of way, that they're out of their mind, and you have the power to go pick them up, go do it. You never leave a black person who's being described as out of their mind in any kind of way in the care of a suspected white supremacist. Even if you don't suspect them, if they have white skin and they have the ability to practice white supremacy, you need to suspect them, and you make sure that you go get your loved one. If you can pick them up that night. Who cares about you being tired in the morning? At least you'll have uh, you'll have them. This grandmother woke up the next morning without her granddaughter, and that's all I got for you in this video. Peace.